Hi folks, well we're just back from a weekend of rallying, and the 110 had a bit of an episode. I've got some work to do on that, but more of that later. Because we're going away to a hill rally in a couple of weeks' time where we're taking both vehicles. Mo's going to be driving this one, the hybrid. She's insisted that I fix the 3 issues that we came back with from the last rally with. So the first one is smashed tail light. I was suspend towing a vehicle and reversed around too tight a corner, and it touched the corner of the hybrid, so that's away. Seemingly the rear indicator isn't working on this side, and then the other thing is I've got an air leak. I've got the air springs in the back of this to help with carrying the extra weight when I'm lifting something, and they're not working, so there's a leaky airline. Mo's already helped me identify it. She was pumping air in from the onboard compressor, and I suspect I've probably melted an airline when I was welding it a couple of months ago. So I've got my little kit of parts here. Hopefully we'll just need these little connectors. Hoping to be able to just snip it off and reattach it. Then when we've got all that done, we'll get on to explaining what happened to Reggie, because we've got some repairs to do there as well. The airline comes from the Schrader valve in the rear cross member to here, and then it splits into 2, and one goes to each airbag. So the airbags both maintain the same pressure. Now, the bit that's broken is inconveniently above the cross member. I think I've probably taken an angle grinder through that at some point. Or maybe attempted to take an angle grinder through it twice. Well, as usual, I didn't have the piece I needed. I really needed a pneumatic joiner, 6mm, which I didn't have. I've got every other size in population, but I do have a T-piece for that size. So what I've went and done is I recovered a section of the damaged hose, filled it full of a chemical metal, put a little screw in the end there. So I'm going to let that set. We'll use that to blank off the T, the leg of the T that I don't need. So in the meantime, I'm going to get on with the reversing light. This is my own fault entirely. We were suspend towing a vehicle that had been in a roll, and the event scrutineers wanted to see it. So I had to somehow turn it around and get it back to the start line of the stage, because the stage had been cancelled by this point. And rather than drive it through the forest an extra mile to find a proper junction and turning point, I decided to do it where they'd been doing some clear felling and stacking logs, and it was just horrible, messy ground. And as I was reversing round sideways, the back of the car kicked up a bank, and it was just enough to make it touch. Reversing light still works, it's LED. The problem I've got now is I need to go underneath and undo the wirings from there, which is the most unpleasant, muddiest job ever. One cable tie under there, and it's freed up a lot more of this wire, although I'm saying there's probably a slight issue there. That one's not connected to anything. And these did have insulating tape on them. I've removed it, but I seem to have soldered these at some point, so God knows what's going on there. So I'll have to go back under and find the remainder of that, and that's just came away in my hand as well. And that's generally what happens to the lights at the back end of the Land Rover. I really don't know how that was working. And now I've lost all the extra length I brought through, so back under we go. Success. Found the earth wire. That's the sleeve of it. It's just gone totally brittle. Connector deed. Wire strippers lost. There we are. Wire strippers lost again. There we go. Right, now to test it. Let me know if it works. Yes! Just in time for a cup of tea. Tidy it up after. Well, in the 5 minutes since I took this out, I've lost the original screws. So thankfully we got some new ones. I've already turned the left-hand indicator on and there ain't much flashing. I hate trying to fix indicators because you can't really use a voltmeter on them like you would normally do with a stable circuit because they're flashing and the voltmeter won't react quick enough. Oh yes, we have continuity. Oops, that's done it. That's also done that. Well, I'll clean the connector up and put a new joiner in, replace these two, see what happens. Right, that's all that rewired with new connectors, and great success. Okay, all that remains is to splice together the airline for the air springs and we'll be good to go. We have a Land Rover that has fully working lights for now. Okay, here's my little T connector and the little plug I've made, so that goes in there. That ain't going nowhere. And now put one end on there like that, and another one on like that, and I think that'll do it. Let's see, get that to hold there. Three out of three. Right, on to Reggie, the 110. Well, the story is, we were doing recovery at Raleigh and we were recovering a vehicle which was very conveniently and awkwardly parked in a river, almost under a bridge, and we were using the rear crane winch on the 110 to lift this vehicle up the bank before winching it out. And I said to Mo was in the vehicle, and I said, make sure you just give the brakes a good pump to get a solid pedal. We had the handbrake on so we could lift this vehicle out, and one of the other recovery crews noticed that there was brake fluid coming out of the bottom of the wheel here, dripping on the ground. So we completed the recovery with the aid of Vulture 2 recovery tied onto the front of us to stop us moving, and then we went into the field and had a look. What had happened was this: the stainless steel flexi hose, which is still attached to the bracket, we've cable tied it out the way now, it started leaking right at the bottom of it here. That should obviously be connected to the brake caliper. So great team effort. So my friend Graham from Vulture 2 and his crew, they went up to the service park for the rally, and there were Land Rovers entering this event, so they stole a brake hose, or they asked nicely, off the Land Rover. It was the Army Land Rover rally team. And then my friend Donald from Atlas 1 Recovery turned up with his crew, and Donald had a brake flaring kit, some brake pipe and a little bit of brake fluid. So by the time they turned up, I'd got the old one apart. Well, by that I mean the top one came apart okay, but the bottom end just snapped, as they do. They tend to seize up after a couple of years just with all the grit in the road. So we got the new one fitted at the top okay, And then Donald came and made a new pipe up, which is here, and flared it and got it attached to the caliper, popped some fluid in it, mop up the pedal, and Donald bled it at this end, and it got us home. So absolutely brilliant teamwork from all the recovery units, and I really appreciate their help. Thanks guys. So what I'm going to do now then is I'm going to have a hunt in my shed, because I think I've got another braided brake line. The other reason I need to change it back is I run a 2-inch lift on this, 2-inch suspension lift, so my braided hoses were 2-inch longer than the standard Land Rover ones. So that's a good enough reason. And also we can actually see here, you know, we've just cable tied it all together because we couldn't get the original pipe off of there, so that's cable tied on, and the bracket down here kind of came away from the top of the hub, so that's been cable tied on as well, and it got us back up the road, the 3-4 hour drive. So time to take it apart and fix it properly, because if I don't do it today, and it was today I arrived home, then that'll be like that forever, because that's what happens when you do a bodge. If it works, you tend to forget about it and go on to the next thing. Well, I seem to have a few in stock of all various lengths, so we'll see if we can get one to match the one that's on here, which I've now freed off. That's weird, that's even longer. I'm wondering, these look like standard length pipes. That one's definitely longer. Right, guess what, we're going to be replacing both sides, which is fine. We couldn't get that nut off when we were taking it apart, and I want to preserve this bracket, so I'm going to undo this, and then we'll get the angle grinder in there, pop that off. I'll get the new hose fitted, but you can see that the little bracket that holds it onto the top of the brake, the hub, has come away with it, so I might try and salvage that. If I can't, we'll be making another one. All this was going on while we were trying to execute quite a difficult recovery, and you know, I got a lot of helpful suggestions from the guys, like, you know, pinch the line off with you know, your mole grips, something like that, and that would stop it losing any more fluid, and it would give me 3 working brakes. Well, that's okay with the genuine parts, because they're rubber and you can compress these quite easily. Stainless steel ones, no, it doesn't happen. They won't compress. And then the other thing is, obviously we wanted to preserve the brake fluid as much as possible, and people were telling me to put a bit of cling film on the reservoir and then screw the cap back on again. That didn't work. What tends to work is if you take, well, I use an old bit of rubber glove, you know, mechanics gloves, and just put that over the end of the pipe with a cable tie or a bit of tape. There's no pressure in this, it's just gravity that's, and siphonage, is that a word? That's causing this fluid to come out here. So pop the union out the way, get the cable tie ready here. I've got a bit of rubber glove already prepared. Half the battle's getting it on over the slimy stuff. And there we go. That'll stop me losing any more fluid. Well, the good thing is this is going to come apart fairly easily, isn't it? Because it's only been on the vehicle for about 27 hours. Socket didn't work, so other means. Ta-da! So I managed to remove the little bracket from the damaged brake pipe, so that can go back on. 50 different people telling you 50 different things, and I actually had loads of people all talking to me at once. At one point I was like, guys, hold on, I don't have rubber hoses, I can't clamp them off. Donald did Definitely a bit of a rustic brake bleed. He just held his finger over the bleed nipple there while Mo pressed the pedal, and then the pressure of the fluid just squirted past his finger, and then when she released the pedal, his finger stopped any fluid going back in. A little bit more messy than you would do at home, but it did the job absolutely perfectly for what we needed. So my solution for stopping the loss of fluid is mainly successful. There's the odd drip coming out of it there, so to nip that cable tie off, there'll be a small deluge which I will catch on that towel, because I'm trying to keep my new jack new for as long as possible. Obviously still got the novelty value of its newness. Dunk. Slide that back down, and there we go. Minimal fluid loss. Okay, all good. I was going to say good as new, but I'm going to say better than. Well, there's no point getting this bled until I've checked the other side, so I'm going to have a look at the hose on the other side. I suspect these hoses were on here when I bought the vehicle, well, the shorter ones, and I think I've done the suspension lift assuming that they were plus 2 inch, and clearly they weren't, but the new ones definitely are. No, I've not lost my mind. These are the right wheels. I've taken the spacers off because our next event is an off-road hill rally, so the mud tyres are going on. Now, I'm sure everybody does this, but when I store these, I get a paint pen and I write on them near side front, so they go back on the same corner. People are a fan of rotating tyres around the vehicle to even the wear up. What I find with Land Rovers, if you put them on a different corner, sometimes they can cause all sorts of problems with wheel nuts are up there. You can get all sorts of problems with steering, grabbing wear marks in the road, catching white lines, and wandering about the place. So I tend to just keep them on the same corner of the car. These are directional anyway, and if the front one's starting to wear out, then tough. As soon as I turn that air gun on, you will be off. Right, we'll get the other side done, and at least that's 50% of the tyres changed, which I was going to have to do anyway. I've put this standard hose I've just taken off the other side against that, and that braided hose is definitely standard length. So I can cause myself a world of pain by changing it, because naturally everything will be rusted and I'll have to remake half the pipes, or I can leave it as a ticking time bomb, and if the suspension overflexes, it's going to tear. So I think I'm just going to get it done. Oh yes, that is turning. Oh, is the pipe turning with it? But I think if I work it back and forward, plenty of your favourite lubricant. Well, look at this. I put a wee bit of heat on it, and it's just coming off a dream. I think I turned the brake fluid into gas though. There's certainly boiling liquid, and it's all dripping on my nice new jack. Gonna nip that back up just now, just quickly, so I don't lose any fluid out of it, because Mo has just given me the "come in, your dinner is on the table" call. Oh, and while you weren't looking, I got the bottom one off as well. So when I come back, that's going to be a nice quick swap over. That's dinner done, and I'm ashamed to say Mo presented a bottle of red wine at dinner, so because I've had a wee glass, I've decided to call it a night, and we'll get going with this again tomorrow morning. Well, today's the next day, and yes, I did have 2 glasses of red wine last night. No, I don't have a hangover, and I actually remember where I left this last night, and everything seems to be coming apart okay. So that's, we've got the big 17mm holding nut off the top end here. and I could have cut it off with the angle grinder, but this one's in good shape, so I want to harvest the nut. Right, one nut to go at this end, and that's us. Well, that 17mm wasn't for undoing, so I've removed the entire bracket. I'll go and put it in the vise and get it off. So next time you see me, we'll be back here and everything will be finished. And there we go, that's everything nipped up and absolutely slabbered in copper slip and various other things, which will probably last about 5 minutes. But now that I'm actually not driving into West Hill every day in winter, I do expect this thing's going to hopefully last a bit longer and not see so much road salt. Last job, get the brakes bled, which I will need my assistant for. Mo! Should be in the garden somewhere. Can you help me with these brakes before it rains, please? Thank you. Now, what did Donald say when he was doing it? Were you on Saturday? Yeah, not yet though. No, I thought it was funny. Donald was saying, Doon! Doon! You doon? Doon. Up. Doon. Up. Okay, are you ready? Doon. Up. Doon. Up. Are you getting a brake pedal? Yeah? Excellent. Job done, thank you. How much am I owe you? To be decided. Alright, that's me finished tightening the wheel nuts up with my torque wrench. The 110 is now very ready for an off-road event with the mud tyres on. I've left all the recovery gear in from last time. The only thing I need to do before we go is put an extra couple of bits of kit in. I normally take a kinetic recovery rope and a couple of heavier strops, and I also changed the lifting bar on the back for this one, which is a bit more suited to off-roaders rather than the one with the straps, which is hidden under here. I just chuck this tarp on the back if I can't be bothered putting the tailgate lid back on, because we're away in a week's time, so that'll do the job. Oh, and then I need to run down to my local garage and see Callum. I've got two lovely new Fedimas 235/85s that I got from Pete Widdop at the Discovery Centre, so check him out. He supplies Fedima tyres to the off-road fraternity, and they're for the hybrid. I think one's for the spare, but the fronts are basically wearing out on that, so get them dropped off and it will be good to go. See you next time.